And for us to understand how to put first things first, I want you to associate yourself with the character Daniel in the scripture. Women, if you're struggling with that, put an L and an E on the end, Danielle. You're good. And so here we find that Daniel, because of the war between Babylon and Israel, Daniel, was taken from his birthplace and his home in Israel as a captor of war into Babylon. And when you read the scriptures, 3 times in the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar, he besieged Israel and defeated them. This was the first of 3 times, 605 BC. And here we find that Daniel, along with other young men who were of the nobility, the upper crust, or of the lineage of the king, were specifically pulled out and brought into the royal academy, where they'll learn the language, the literature, the culture of the Babylonians, a 3-year-long program. Now, vision, how do you get vision when you're a captive? How do you get vision when you're a prisoner? How do you have a goal when you're in a place that you never wanted to be, with people that you never wanted to be with, doing things that you never wanted to do? How do you muster up the strength and the stamina and the courage and the proper perspective to say, I got a goal and I have a vision for my life, and I want to get that accomplished? May I say to you that in the same way, you start life from where you are, not from where you are not or where you want to be. Start from where you are. And a lot of us, we're not starting life because we hope we're over there. We wish we had more money in the bank. We wish we were married to this person instead of that person. We wish we were married, period. And I don't care what person. And so we find ourselves wishing and hoping that we were somewhere else, doing something else with some other people other than ones that we're with, and then we never seem to get out of the starting block. Why? Because we have it wrong in how we look at life. You got to start life where you are and not where you're not. And that was Daniel's perspective. In fact, one of the interesting things is the third principle, that the third step in the 12-step process with Narcotics Anonymous. You know, in the recovery process, what they conclude, what helps the addicts get free from addiction to narcotics, they say, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. In other words, we can't weep over all of what we've lost and all over what we have not accomplished. We decided to say, God, take our life where we are. Let's start life with you here. And that's a very good point to make as we begin first things first. Now, I want to see 3 lessons. In fact, there are 3 lessons that emerge from this text that can help us with vision, because I believe that year 2014 can be the most exciting year in your life. If you say, God, I turn my life over to you, I'm starting now, and I want to start where I am and not bemoan where I'm not. I'm here, let me start where I am. But to get things going with these lessons, I remember this class of graduate students. They had a guest lecturer, and he was an expert in time management. And it was almost like a kindergarten class. He had show and tell. As soon as he got up to in front of the class, there was this 6-foot-long table there, tablecloth draped over it, and he went underneath the table and pulled out this 1-gallon mason jar and put it on the desk. It had a large mouth. And he went again under the table and pulled out this bucket with fist-sized rocks. And he carefully placed rocks into the jar until it couldn't take any more. About 12 fist-sized rocks fit the mason jar. He asked the students, is this jar full? Everyone, they smirked, they grimaced. He said, of course it's full. He said, no. He went under the table a second time and pulled out gravel, a container with gravel. He poured the gravel into the mason jar, shook the jar. The gravel was able to circumvent the rocks and get into all the nook and crevices. And then he asked the class, is this jar full? They got some clarity, and they said, probably not. He said, you're right. He went under the table a third time and pulled out a bucket with sand. And he poured the bucket into the mason jar, and the sand was able to maneuver its way through the gravel, through the fist-sized rocks, and come all the way up to the top. And then he said to the class, class, is this mason jar full? Students are upset now. They said, probably not. And so he said, you're right. He goes under the table another time and pulls out this container of water. And he pours the pitcher of water into the mason jar, and it fills up. The water goes between the rocks and the gravel and the sand, and it fills all the way up to the top. And then he said to the class, he said, class, what am I teaching you by this illustration? Sharp student raised his hand. He just shot his hand right up there. You're teaching us, professor, that no matter how full our schedule is, we probably can pack some other things in it. He said, nope, that's not the lesson. Here's the lesson. If you want to accomplish big things in your life, put the big things first in the jar, and the other things will fit in.